Welcome to Kingdom of Context. I'm Sean. Thanks for joining us here today. A little afternoon chill stream. Wanted to talk about the controversial data centers that are popping up everywhere across the United States and across the world. And according to Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, in their minds, they want them to pop up literally in space as well. But we're also going to talk about how this was actually shown to us in a movie back like 15 years ago, and that this is just another predictive programming aspect of what's been shown to us, been told to us about where they're wanting to go to exact total control. So we're going to talk about that and give you something to pray about, give you something to pray for Father to intervene in certain areas. Because if you thought that the people that run this world were done flexing their muscle because COVID was over, you're sorely mistaken. They're still going to flex, and COVID just emboldened them to flex all the more. So we're going to watch and listen to some interesting stuff from their own mouths, not just me reading a random article. We'll listen to their own testimony about what they want to do. And the previous guys, if you remember, for some of you that have followed us for a while, you may remember that we have talked about what's called a breakaway civilization in episode or part 21 of our 42 series. That's under our 42 series playlist here on the channel if you want to go watch it. It just gives you an idea of the mindset of the people that run the world and how we're kind of just in their way and what they want to do, and knowing that they have to somehow pacify us so that we don't become a true obstacle and rise up against them, but essentially that we're just in their way towards the plans that they want to do to exact total control and get back to a Tower of Babel Babylonian system to where all the world is under central control. And that is the idea. That's their plan. And the macro plan, and the micro takes place in different ways, right? Different strategies, different scams. And that's what we're going to talk about, the latest one that we're watching. And so, okay, that didn't work out. Let's look at something real quick. Thanks for being here, everyone. Put a like on the video. Drop a hello in the chat. Let me know you're watching. Let me know you're here. It helps boost the video, boost the algorithm. Share this on your socials. Drop some comments here as we go through some of the stuff. And let's look at some of it. All right.
Amazing enough, Elon said this.
Next step beyond Earth data centers is our Earth orbital data centers. And we'll be launching with SpaceX orbital data centers at the 100 to 200 gigawatt per year level. Not cumulative, I mean per year. And ultimately, we see a path to maybe launching as much as a terawatt per year of compute from Earth.
Are you sick of scrolling? Watch the whole thing here.
Okay. So he's just talking about how much information they're trying to process. Okay. I think some of the Indiana data centers are talking about, like, they're building large scale, taking up massive amounts of farmland, and they're talking about building 2 gigawatts of output. And he's talking about, 100, 200 gigawatts of output from these data centers, which is a massive amount. And the idea is what they're doing is what they want to do is try to put them in space, because the way they claim, obviously they would be above the clouds. They claim perpetual sunlight, colder atmosphere, just like as we see with SpaceX. They claim it's in space, but bro, if they're the size of a bus, if they're not even that big, SpaceX, they aren't even that big, but they're the size of a bus, and people say they can see them with their natural eye floating in the sky. You're not looking at them 100 miles up in space, or even 50 miles up in a heliocentric space model. You're looking at them in a high atmosphere above the clouds. And they can communicate data back and forth. It's not that difficult. In fact, it's interesting that in the ancient world, because remember, there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, in the ancient world, as we've talked about emphatically on this channel throughout the years, that the quote-unquote gods of the ancient world had not only craft that looked and act just like what's described for modern UAPs and UFOs, to traverse from the heaven down to the earth and interact with mankind and go back up again. And then at times even give some of those crafts to mankind and teach them how to use them, because they were, they were considered trusted amongst, their what the Blade movie would call the familiars. But they essentially, with those UFOs came, or with those Vamanas is what they used to be called, become incredible amounts of information and sophistication and technology. And of course, the home of Ra was considered to be the Eye of Ra, which was considered to be an incredible place, not only of his abode, but a place from communication with the earth that also could communicate destruction to the earth if it wanted to as well. But it's personified through the avatar of Hermes, or in the Roman pantheon, they renamed it Mercury, when he was considered the winged messenger of the gods, because he would take the information and traverse between heaven and earth lightning fast with superiority of speed and reliability. And in the modern way, that's the similar concept of what they're trying to, like, there's a couple of data centers or AI data companies out there that even name themselves Mercury and Hermes, like Hermes AI, Hermes 3s, different things like that. There's some open AI. I think there's one company called News, which is, its AI program is called Hermes, and then it's like an open AI thing. But this has all been done before. This is not new stuff. It's just got a new veneer. It's got a new outer coat of paint. It's got a new, slightly different shape to it, but it's the same concepts. Let's go ahead and look at something else real quick.
No-brainer for building solar-powered AI data centers in space. The lowest cost place to put AI will be space, and that'll be true within 2 years, maybe three at the latest.
Okay, so he's talking 2 to 3 years. Other people are going to say longer time periods, like a decade, but you guys know that that's always kind of a misdirect, right? Specifically when there is investment involved through the stock market, and all these companies are inside of portfolios, and they can't just give you a direct timeline. Otherwise, it's going to signal investment, whether shorts or losses or puts. I mean, it's going to signal manipulation of the market. So they always, to give you a generic time, it's always a misdirect, right? We also have Amazon's Jeff Bezos.
It's going to happen in the next, it's hard to know exactly when. It's 10 plus years, but I bet it's not more than 20 years. We're going to start building these giant gigawatt data centers in space. So these giant training clusters, those will be better built in space because we have solar power there 24/7, and the solar power there are no clouds and no rain, no weather.
Okay, so think about what he's saying. They're talking solar space, no clouds, no rain, no weather, no interruption, constant solar energy. They could put solar panels on the racks. Now, just in case you understand here, and when they talk about a data center, okay, the ones they build on the ground are these massive buildings with flat roofs, most of them. And then inside is just rows and rows, what they will call racks of processors, with sophisticated microprocessors inside, all the computers that are channeling, storing, relaying the information, doing the thinking. When you go into ChatGPT, you go into Grok and you're typing in something, it's something somewhere is doing the thinking, the searching, and getting back and creating the video for you, creating the detailed report on what you asked about. And that generates heat. So then they have to figure out ways within these large, they look like car manufacturing plants, right? These large warehouse type facilities they're building rapidly. The building of the facilities are super easy. They're not like a complex structure. And then putting up the racks, it's just they're creating their own microchips for this. Like, so it's, it's just as simply moving as fast as possible that they can do this in order to build large amounts of data centers. But the problem with them being on the ground is all the heat that it produces, which is why it has to be cooled. And this, of course, is draining from the groundwater from all the places that have been put in, and cities are going crazy. People around the country and all their farmers, farmland, agricultural areas, they're noticing aquifers are being depleted, groundwater is being taken also the energy consumption is raising everyone's electrical bill in the area. And then many of the data centers have tax exemption to where they're not even paying taxes to the region or the state to resupply and help get those energy bills back down for the average person. So basically, they're getting tax incentivization and protection, not just from lawmakers at the federal level, but also at state levels. And the average person sees just their bills rising and their fresh water depleting in the area. So it's becoming a huge contentious thing, and many people are freaking out about this. So the idea is they're going, okay, well, what if we just put these in space? Now, keep in mind, putting them in space doesn't mean that there's the Bible's false. Okay, there's a firmament that the Bible describes. We're in an enclosed system, but between the ground and the covering of the firmament, there is a lot of distance. And our cloud layer, I mean, like, what is it like? Average clouds are hanging at like 3 feet, but there's other clouds I believe that go maybe up 20 miles up. Not even that. Highest cloud layer altitude. Yeah, some say 53 miles up. So if you can get something to, and of course these are the cirrus, circumcumulus, and cirrus stratus. Okay, so these are the much bigger ones, and less. Okay, higher up in the mesosphere. Okay, so supposedly there is something called like the Kármán line at 62 miles up. Some people think it's the actual firmament. 62 miles is pretty far, guys. But at the same time, it's if you have relays, we've talked about this in the past as well. Like last year, we did some videos on HAPS, the high altitude plane systems, which are high altitude platform systems called HAPS, which they're already deploying, which can hang out like drones in the air for 3 months at a time and be your 5G relay for internet and other things. And people don't know it. They think, oh, it's just, oh, I get my TV from a satellite in space. No, it's actually just from long-term drones that are up there for 3 or 4 months, and then they land and another drone replaces it. And those, of course, are solar powered and provide all the data transfer that it needs to. So they've already perfected the technology to do this. Now they're just wanting to say, okay, what if we put actual data centers, quote unquote, above the clouds? Even if they are above the normal clouds and then are still only 20 miles up and go through the occasional, what do they call them? The occasional mesospheric clouds, which are much higher up, they don't last forever. Like these are things that are floating above in a type of orbit over a region. So they're moving through the cloud, and it's not going to slow down productivity because they'll be through the cloud in no time. But it's not as if they're just under a cloud layer trying to communicate, because sometimes different parts of the country has persistent, long-standing clouds for days on end with rain, especially in the springtime and the fall. So to avoid all that, they give the propaganda publicly that, oh, we're going to space. We'll just do this in space. Well, you're going to see here in a minute that Sam Altman is even contradicting Elon Musk, talking about, man, if we use SpaceX to go up to space, it's like $62 million per launch. You know, the cost analysis of taking, the payload required and throwing it up in space in a geosynchronous orbit would be ridiculous, like $1.25 trillion. SpaceX itself, I think Elon Musk's total collaborative companies itself is only like a little over $1 trillion in net value. So you're essentially, this is why they're pulling together with Google, with OpenAI, they're pulling together with Amazon, and they're saying Elon Musk, you're going to see a video in a minute. He asked to get like millions. He wants to put like 1 million satellites in the sky. And they've been, I believe this is what SpaceX, the Starlink, I believe this is what Starlink was practicing for the whole time, is that they were practicing and perfecting the ability to put something at a high altitude and stay up there for a long period of time, be able to communicate with relays appropriately, reliably. And now it's just about, okay, how much of a computer can we put up in the sky that could relay all the data transfer needs that are required. So let's keep listening though. Just trying to give you some understanding of like when you hear him say, oh, we're going to go to space, there's no clouds, there's eternal heat and it's cooler. Yeah, they can achieve that, but they don't have to go. They're not. There is no heliocentric model. We live in a biblical enclosed cosmology. They can just go into the high altitude to achieve all this stuff.
So you can build. We will be able to beat the cost of terrestrial data centers in space in the next couple of decades.
Remember, in our 42 series, we also showed Amazon's Jeff Bezos saying that within the next 50 years, he wants us to be living in low altitude orbit. He wants to build what's called neocolonies, which is perpetually hovering, livable environments in the air that people will grow up and live there, so that we can get off the ground because, global warming, we're harming the ground and all that kind of stuff. Like, this is what they've publicly talked about. So this concept of putting quote unquote data centers in high altitude, which they're calling space, and getting people used to that idea is just more of the overall macro plan leading to the idea of what I've put forward in the 42 series, which is this idea of, they're wanting us to get used to thinking that we are constantly communicating with space at all times because of the alien disclosure and agenda that they want to release and get everybody comfortable with communicating with aliens who are going to just be hovering in low orbit.
Owned by Elon Musk, has absorbed the billionaire's artificial intelligence startup xAI, according to an announcement released Monday. The merger is intended to give xAI a space-based advantage over its primary competitors, including OpenAI, Google, and Meta. Musk said the acquisition would be the first step in bringing data centers, which are needed to train and develop artificial intelligence, to space, saying electricity demand for AI on Earth, quote, cannot be met with terrestrial solutions, even in the near term, without imposing hardship on communities and the environment. Musk estimated in the next 2 to 3 years, the most cost-effective way to build processing power for AI will be in space, claiming the use of near-constant solar power would involve, quote, little operating or maintenance costs. According to Bloomberg, the estimated valuation for the combined SpaceX company is $1.25 trillion. A recent Reuters report noted xAI shares could be exchanged for shares in SpaceX under the deal, adding some xAI executives may have the option to receive cash instead of SpaceX stock. The merger marks the latest instance of a Musk-controlled company absorbing another firm led by the billionaire. Last March, xAI purchased X in a $33 billion all-stock deal, allowing the two companies to merge their data, AI models, AI hardware, and talent. With the latest merger between SpaceX and xAI, the latter company is positioned to be the first AI company to deploy data centers in space, something OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has explored through potentially partnering with or acquiring a rocket company, according to the Wall Street Journal. Musk's plan to go beyond data centers on Earth is rooted in limited supply for overwhelming demand for the centers. Power demand from AI data centers in the US could grow more than 30-fold between 2024 and 2035, according to Deloitte, which noted most power capacity development can take longer than building out data centers. For more on this story, check out the article linked in the description.
Absolutely no one was talking about data centers in space. Enter Elon Musk, SpaceX, and the grand plans. Now the conversation is not a matter of if it makes sense, but when. Here's Elon Musk's bestie, Scam Altman, describing their viability. Keeping in mind that if OpenAI, or more accurately closed AI, were to go down the path of data centers in space, at this point in time, they would need to use SpaceX for those launches, a Musk-led company.
There's another space race that I keep hearing about.
I honestly think the idea with the current landscape of putting data centers in space is ridiculous. It will make sense someday. But if you just do like the very rough math of launch costs relative to the cost of power we can do on Earth, to say nothing of how you're going to fix a broken GPU in space, and they do break a lot still, unfortunately, we are not there yet. There will come a time, space is great for a lot of things. Orbital data centers are not something that's going to matter at scale this decade.
This seems like some crazy doublespeak from Sam. If you don't listen carefully to the actual words used, you might get fixated on his.
Yeah, this is why I would say that this the misdirect, right? Because they've already he's already in leagues with Musk and Bezos and the owner of Google to create a partnership for them all. They're even talking about Google potentially purchasing their own rockets to send things up into space, or at least that's what they're going to tell the public. Right. But that's, again, it's all teasing the idea and then saying, but we can't really achieve it right now, while they're actually trying to achieve something comparable to it. To then, once they decide to actually open it up to the public or use it how they want to use it, it's already in place and it's not a problem. And there's they've already teased the idea to people, but then they get less backlash. Okay, because essentially what you're going to see in a minute is like Elon Musk is asked to put ridiculous amount of quote unquote satellites in over our heads.
His claim that as of this current millisecond, the idea of data centers in space is ridiculous, which when he did suggest that. He then continues, very carefully, cautiously, and deliberately choosing his words to imply that space-based data centers for AI training and inference won't, quote, matter at, quote, scale this decade. And it's close to impossible for him to be wrong.
Yeah, Jamie, I know this is the idea. This is why, you read through the scriptures constantly, the people that are considered wicked, and that Yahweh within the nation of Israel was addressing the princes, the governors, the ruling class, and the people that were considered bad stewards and bad shepherds of the people. They neglected the widow, the orphan, those who needed help. They neglected. They stole land from people. They had bad real estate deals. They took bribes and passed unfair judgment in favor of the wealthy, so that they could have their own deals back then, according to the context of things they were involved in. And this is the stuff that Yahweh reprimanded these people for over and over again: Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, and other books of the prophets, because they forgot the widow, the orphan, and the poor. Yep. And this is what, on a government level, like in California right now, in LA, what is there like projected to be like 70,000 homeless people, and they're at breakneck speeds trying to build as many data centers as possible just on this topic. I mean, there's other topics you could go into where mass amounts of money is going into something that you're asking yourself, does it really cost that much to do this stuff? And then the straight up fakery stuff, like the entire space program, like other military programs, that money is just thrown away and wasted. There's a guy he was an Oklahoma senator, and I can't remember what his name was, but I don't know if he still does this or not, but he used to publish every year, because he was in Washington representing Oklahoma, and every year he'd publish a book of all the ridiculous spending through Washington for things that weren't worth it. Like 62, like he would publish a book every year showing, okay, these are the things that came across the budget that I went and investigated. And he would go investigate and be like, all right, they asked for $2 million for some company or some, Greenpeace type of organization to go out to the Badlands in Australia and make sure that the geckos can get across a certain waterway. And you're like, $2 million went to that, like the amount of money from the US government that went out to different countries for different types of environmental concepts, as well as just construction projects within the United States. He would detail these in his books, and these books he put out every year show like, oh, the White House renovated a bathroom in the Lincoln bedroom, and they spent $100,000 on a toilet. Oh yeah. And because they had to buy the tools to do it, they also spent like $10,000 on a single hammer. And you're like, how is this getting through people? And because there's mass amounts of corruption that's happening in this country. And I think what they're claiming these data centers are for and all that stuff, it's just so you can go online and upload a picture of SpongeBob and animate it and make it funny and share it as a meme on Facebook. No, that's not what they're for. No, these things are a part of this system they're building, the infrastructure for a controlled network that can process all the images from all the street cams that they're uploading everywhere across the country, all the listening devices. So, like in the past, a lot of people worried about the NSA listening to you through your phone. But the idea before AI became a reality was that, yes, through your phones, they're probably listening to everything you do and say, which is, we already know that's how they sell that information to advertisers so they can target market you. But people are worried, like, oh, the NSA is listening for, everything I say. And you're like, well, it's possibly being recorded and that data is being transferred back through the cell phone companies to the NSA, but no one's actively accessing that file and listening to it and making some kind of determination and spending time thinking about what you said. There's not enough manpower for that. But now with AI, they can then run keyword searches with looking for contextual clues of what you might be talking about. And now they've got the quote unquote digital manpower amplified, into the billions and billions of replicated quote unquote digital manpower through AI to actually go through all that information in real time from everyone's phones and cameras and TVs and all the kind of stuff that your smart home information and all that. So this is where, West Blaze, there's a whole bunch of new surveillance cameras that have popped up across the country in the last several years. In addition to the AI data centers, they're building they're like we already talked about in previous streams, they're talking about they're wanting to build the smart cities. What's interesting about the data centers as they keep popping up is the people that live in the area are saying, well, if they're going to steal our water, and some of them are having their homes taken through eminent domain, and they're going to steal our resources from the area, and it's going to cause agriculture and farming to decrease, well, they're going to have to move. Well, that's convenient when they want you to move into a smart city. Let me see if I can find this real quick. It was several years ago, I ran into somebody that worked for a company in Denver. I highly doubt I'll be able to find it. The way the person was describing it doesn't seem like there's like wanted to be found on the internet. But basically, I several years ago, I ran into a person that worked for a company out of Denver, and she worked with other companies in Germany and other companies in Europe, and their whole goal was to plan smart cities. So what I mean by, and they were actively, they were a company this isn't a startup. They were a thriving company, employed, being hired as a consulting company by nations and by cities to go in and look at the city. So the idea was they're consultants, of which this lady I'm talking to is one of these consultants. And she was telling me that what they're hired to do is go into a city and take an overview of the city. Okay. How many cars and trains go through the city? How many people are ferried in and out of the city on average with those cars and trains? How many people come through the airport of that city? How many people live in the city? How much power is consumed from the city? How much data is consumed from the city? How much water is consumed? How much parking space is there? What roadways would need to be either removed completely, or roads and highways would have to be added to create a smart city, so that you have to take away all the parking lots so that it discourages people from owning a car, and then make sure that there's enough public transportation outlets, whether through smart cars or through trains, so that the people wouldn't be incentivized to get a car. Instead, they just got plenty of free public transportation, and then basically set up a system where the people are disincentivized to leave the city, and everything within the city and all the metrics of it was known and controlled. They're like literally planning this right now for existing cities and to build new cities that no one's ever heard of before based on this concept. And their plan was for the next 100 years. And they're being employed as a consulting firm by nations and cities right now to do so. She even told me they were in a European city, which had a history of like 700 years. It was like a city whose roots were 700 years old. So ancient, historical sites throughout the city. And they're like, well, we're going to demolish those. put in a new beltway or put in a new tram, and then that way we're going to get rid of all the parking structures and all the excessive parking lots, and that way people won't own cars at all, and then you'll just be a resident of the city. Very unlikely that you would leave the city at any point. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Hunger Games that came out in like 2012 or whatever. That was the story, that all of humanity was broken up in these 12 regions and they just stayed within their cities. Anyway, we're also going to talk about here in a minute. I'm going to show you a movie that came out in the past that actually the background plot of the movie is being fulfilled in some of these words that we're seeing take place with these data centers and what they're doing to cities and towns and their plans for everything involved. It's kind of wild.
This carefully worded statement. Even if before the end of this decade, which just for the record is almost 2/3 complete already, so just a few years from now, even if there are some data centers in space doing AI inference or training, there's so little time left in this decade and so little global launch capacity today relative to how much there'll be in the future that it's impossible for him to be wrong with these claims. Even if there are some AI data centers in space before the end of the decade, relative to the amount of compute back on Earth doing the same tasks, it's going to look like a drop in the bucket. So, rather impressively, Scam Altman has somehow managed to throw out the word ridiculous, which will capture all the headlines. Scam Altman, OpenAI, says AI data centers in space, ridiculous idea. Yet, has actually completely agreed with Elon Musk's predictions and SpaceX's public timelines, estimating that they'll be economically viable in, call it 3 to 4 years, which would be next decade. Which, I guess, it would logically follow then that if you are SpaceX, you'd want to be going balls to the wall on this plan, designing your satellites, ramping up solar production, sourcing your AI chips, refining your Starship design and reusability to get launch costs down, which, funnily enough, is exactly what they're doing. Oh, and one final thing.
Beyond Earth data centers is our Earth orbital data centers. And we'll be launching with SpaceX orbital data centers at the 100 to 200 gigawatt per year level. Not cumulative, I mean per year. And ultimately, we see a path to maybe launching as much as a terawatt per year of compute from Earth.
SpaceX, owned by Elon Musk.
There you go. 1 second. Let's listen to this real quick. So this is from a recent thing that's gone up. You may have seen this in the news with Utah freaking out because they're trying to build a mega data center in Utah, and the people were opposed to it. The city councilors, the commissioners, whatever, they just passed it anyway.
Is between us and you! False authority! False authority!
On Monday, hundreds of angry residents came out to express their opposition to Kevin O'Leary's proposed data center in Box Elder County, Utah, only to be told commissioners weren't taking comments.
Why won't they let people talk? Why won't they let us ask questions?
From now on, I will tell you, you continue. I have law enforcement here. We'll remove you from the meeting.
Fed up with the resident uprising, the commissioners left the room to conduct the meeting virtually and promptly approved the project.
I would move for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion we approve.
Yeah, good to see you, Dad King Coffee. You said you're currently working at a data center in Indianapolis, which is one of the places that they're building like a massive amount of data centers in Indiana. And yes, if you look at these buildings, bro, all you gotta do is come in there and take the racks out, and it's a perfect prison. It's a perfect large prison facility.
Resolution 2612.
At 40,000 acres, it would be the largest data center in the world, consuming more power than the entire state of.
I don't know if you guys saw that or not. They plan to make this thing in Utah 62.5 square miles. Guys, that is ridiculous. That is 62 square miles of land. That's a massive amount of project to build. Water required, electricity consumed. I mean, that's like a massive concept. I just, it's hard for me to think that they're going to actually be able to achieve all this and not just run into a so there's one of two things that goes through my mind, right? One, they're not going to be able to achieve all the scope of everything they claim to be doing, or two, they are going to be able to achieve it, and it's just going to reveal that they've been lying to us about how much energy we produce as a country and how much is available, because everything's going to still continue to operate as normal. But if it gets to a point where like the towns surrounding this place, if they start losing data, or excuse me, like having brownouts or blackouts because they literally just don't have enough power for the cities surrounding them, then you're going to have like full on riots on your hands. So I don't understand how they think that they're going to be able to get away with this long term. Is that what I'm saying? Unless there's other things correlating with this, and they just don't care, because when all these consequences start happening, they'll be insulated and it just won't matter anyway. And they'll just be expecting people to migrate away from these things anyway. I don't know. There's a lot to consider here, but what they're claiming that they want to do is on a grand scale, and it is not conducive for the average person in an average American town.
In the world, consuming more power than the entire state of Utah.
I'm actually here to support good governance, which this wasn't. We actually have a 5-year review process for this kind of stuff in the past. This was pushed through in 5 months.
This data center would just mean more suffering for me and everybody else that lives here while a couple of rich jerks line their pockets.
It's my understanding that the guy that is behind all of this is from Canada. I don't understand why Utah is letting a Canada company come in and take advantage of us.
The biggest concerns really are about water usage, broad environmental impacts, and then the fact that the state is basically giving an out-of-country developer a tax break. We're subsidizing corporate profit with public resources, and I'm just not okay with that.
They're going to poison our air, and they're going to create a heat island that's not going to be good for us either. We're already in the middle of a terrible drought.
Residents are also concerned that the data center could drain water from the Great Salt Lake, which is already suffering from declining water levels.
It's important that we place this within the community, that we place it within the scientists who know how this will affect the Great Salt Lake, not in bureaucrats down at the Capitol.
Why do they think that they can do the studies afterwards when everybody else has to do studies beforehand?
Hey, it's a valid point. It's a valid point, guys. Anyone that's ever done any kind of construction project, usually you have to go through environmental studies, especially because of the EPA and all that kind of stuff from the last 30, 40 years, new regulations and all that. But these people are getting fast-tracked on these approvals. And should be the biggest red flag that we all looking at. Why are they getting fast-tracked? Why is this stuff happening? It's from top down. They're getting fast-tracked. Correspondents, the talking pundits on the news agencies, they'll tell you, well, it's because, we're in an AI race with China and we've got to do this. Otherwise, China is going to have a stronger AI and they'll be able to just feed us with the stronger AI. Other people truly believe, like, they'll try to support that narrative and say, because that's just the broad brush slogan, right? Is that we're in an AI race with China and we must beat them. But other people will try to give a nuanced answer to that to say, well, and this goes into a whole nother kind of conspiracy theory to where they believe that the US government since like 2017, 2018 has already been outsourcing their counsel to an AI system because they trust it better than, having to get together a whole bunch of intel agencies and other advisors and try to work it out with meetings. They can just type in, how do I handle the growing threat in the South China Sea between the American military forces trying to protect Taiwan and the People's Republic of China wanting to take over Taiwan without causing World War III. So, like, I know that sounds hyperbolic and that sounds silly. Like, surely a president or a Department of State or the Chief General of the Staff of the United States government wouldn't type that question into an AI and expect a coherent answer. But why not? If they trust this thing, especially with military AI probably being 15, 20 years ahead of anything the public has, if they trust this thing to actually be able to source information with predictive programming, not predictive programming, but predictive analysis as far as war strategizing, right? War gaming. Why wouldn't they? That's, of course, if you believe Russia and China are genuinely threats to each other, which is, I believe, just the overall narrative that the world leaders want you to believe for the sake of keeping control over the people. But in truth, they're all behind the scenes. They're all working together for a bigger plan. So this is why the scriptures tell us that the nations strive together and they rage in vain against the plans of Yahweh. So the scriptures tell us, like in Luke 4, when Satan tells Christ that all of the kingdoms of the world have been given under his control. Now he then goes on to try to tempt Christ by saying, I'll give them to you, and you can control them if you bow down to me. And but Jesus didn't respond. Jesus didn't challenge him and say, oh, you're lying to me. You don't control all of them. No, he just didn't take the offer. Don't put your Lord God to the test. Don't tempt the Lord, right? Because the nations of the world, with kings and queens, rulers, empires, presidents, all that kind of stuff, who are given their allegiance in this occulted fashion, which is, if you're new to the channel and this language seems crazy to you, conspiracy tinfoil hat, well, you've been on a desert island apparently for somewhere. You haven't been paying attention to anything in the last 20 years, not only in social media but also in general news. That it is well known that there are the people that run the world. They're not. They have their allegiance to entities that they claim are gods, and it's not the God of the Bible. It's the false gods in the Bible. The true Most High God in the Bible is telling people to avoid and to not fall for their deceptions. So this is why Satan himself can say all the kingdoms of the earth have been given under his control, and he's right to say that. For this time period, that's true until Christ returns, and then everything's put under Christ's control as he victoriously defeats the devil and all the minions below him. But if you don't understand that general big macro scale overarching view of the world and where we are and the reality of the world, then you're going to think these are just a bunch of hippies, just a bunch of left-wing lunatics that are screaming about water rights and landfalls and deer migration patterns and things like that that don't want big tech to move in a data center. That's not it at all. Like this, there's a bigger ideology coming in that they've announced a long time ago, not just with the transhumanism agenda, but with a world agenda to create smart cities, to control people, to corral people. So they're going to have to do that in one of two ways. Now, I've talked about in the past that I feel like there's a ton of predictive programming for them to release what they would call a nuclear weapon in Los Angeles at some point. And just like we're going to look at predictive programming in a movie here in a minute for what we're experiencing with these data centers. But there's also predictive programming for what looks like they're going to try to destroy Los Angeles and call it a nuclear attack and then blame it on somebody and get into war. But the point is, it's going to cause a ton of people to migrate away from major metropolises. The survivors, anyway. But they can't get away with that too much, right? Because then you'd have mass instability and you would lose total control. So another effective way to do so is to forcibly or to consequentially cause people to migrate because they're just so mad at you and they want to get away from what you're building in their area. Something to consider.
We already have 53% of the lake bed exposed, and that lake bed is toxic.
They're using water for this system, water that we need in this state. I have survived for 68 years without AI. I have no need for AI.
This is not for the good of the people here. This is for the good of some out-of-town big shots who want to make themselves richer than they already are, even though they already have more money than they know what to do with, at our expense.
We are going to do something about it today, and we're going to do something about it tomorrow.
That's crazy, Timmy. Yeah, I used to live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Pryor was just like 30, 40 minutes north, and it's a lot of farmland up there, a lot of open space.
And we're going to do something about it every day until people realize that our communities matter more than corporate profit.
Wants data centers in space through SpaceX. He just asked the FCC for permission to launch up to 1 million solar-powered satellites that would run massive AI
Did you guys hear that? So he petitioned the FCC to run 1 million solar-powered satellites in space, what they're calling space. 1 million. So right now, I think space Starlink already has like 9,000 or 10,000, if I'm not mistaken, units that they've sent up, and they want to achieve 30,000 in the next few years. And he's talking about putting 1 million AI data centers in space, which, again, like I said, those are not individual satellites by technical definition. They would be much smaller because it would just be like data racks, right? But somehow they would augment the engineering for them to be held, put up into space, spoken, transferring communication to each other, receiving, transferring data in some sort of geosynchronous orbit in high altitude, again, because we don't live in a ball in space, we live under a firmament according to the scriptures. But there's plenty of space in high altitude for this designation for to blanket, like, this is like this it is ironic that Elon Musk was the one in Iron Man 2 movie that came out in like 2011, 2010, that he actually had a cameo appearance in the Iron Man 2 movie to shake Tony Stark's hand at this particular meeting, because people said, oh, like, he's the next Tony Stark because he's doing SpaceX. And, they were calling him that in jest back in the early 2000s. They were calling Elon Musk, and in the early teens, calling him Iron Man or Tony Stark specifically. And he was actually in that movie. And of course, Tony Stark in the 2015 Avengers movie announces his plan for the Avengers movie is to create a whole bunch of lesser versions of this Iron Man suit, android-like, and then blanket the entire Earth in geosynchronous orbit with these defenders of the Earth, these autonomous Iron Man suits, which would have required tens of thousands of Iron Man suits as a blanket around the world to protect it from the incoming Thanos. And here it is, Elon Musk in jest, compared to a Tony Stark, now wants to put around the world 1 million data centers. We live in an absolute clown show, guys. We live in an absolute fake reality. These people think that we're not paying attention.
Workloads in orbit. This sounds insane, but here's why it matters. Earth-based data centers are choking on power grids, water and cooling limits, and massive energy bills driven by AI demands. In space, there's near endless solar power, no atmosphere interference, and potentially ultra-low latency for global real-time AI access. No local regulations, no blackouts, and no grid bottlenecks. But here's the real risk. Who controls the compute? If orbital AI runs on satellites owned by one company, then global AI speed pricing and access concentrate fast. Latency drops, costs fall, but power literally moves into space. Orbital AI could change everything for creators, marketers, and developers with faster tools and cheaper inference, but at what cost?
That's wild. So do you guys remember, I mean, some of you probably remember, I mean, I'm 46, but back in my early 20s, Halo came out, right? The game Halo. And I had an Xbox a long time ago, and I played Halo all the time. Halo is about, it's kind of an alien narrative. You got to go fight the aliens on this thing that's in orbit around the Earth, which is like a livable environment, kind of like an O'Neill colony, but it was kind of like in the shape of a destroyed moon. Okay. And it was from an alien invasion. You had to go up there and kill the aliens, and you were a space marine. And this is where the storyline of Halo comes from. The whole concept is you have to go to an O'Neill style colony in low Earth orbit to fight the incurring invasion of aliens. Super, super popular game. Super popular game. Indoctrinating a whole generation at that time of young people across the world of interaction between the Earth and low Earth orbit, alien invasion, advanced tech hovering in the atmosphere. Super, super popular game. Let's look real quick though at, I'm not going to play the sound because I can't. I can't play the sound. Give me just 1 second. Let me try to adjust this. So this is a movie that came out, what I think maybe like 2011, 2012. It's called Oblivion. And Oblivion was a Tom Cruise movie. The world's been destroyed from an alien invasion. He keeps having these flashbacks of his life, of his wife before this new dystopian time period he's in. He's a guardian who lives in a tower in the sky with this woman that's been assigned to him to go out and patrol the destroyed Earth from this thing. Okay, did you guys see that? From this thing that is hovering in space over the Earth. This is the alien invasion, right? It's a thing in orbit around the Earth that just hovers up there. It's called the Tet, or the Tetrad would be the full name, but it's called the Tet. And this is the alien ship, which is there's no aliens in it. Spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen this movie, you should have already. It's been like 15 years. Spoiler alert, there's no aliens in this ship. This is an AI ship. It's just a big data center. And what they need from the Earth is to suck all the water out of the oceans. They have already destroyed the Earth and they destroyed the moon, but they just want to suck all the water out of the oceans. And this is the villain that, so he doesn't know in the movie that he's actually been cloned and he's been made a humanoid guardian to guard the Earth, and he's having memories from his original body before he was cloned. And then he eventually rebels at the end against the Tetrad. But this is the destroyed Earth after the alien invasion that he guard, kind of like, he's kind of like a sentinel type of, outpost guardian over a certain quadrant that he has to go monitor every day. It's supposed to be the Golden Gate Bridge and what used to be the Golden Gate Bay full of sand. So the purpose of this movie, aside from the plots, okay, aside from the advanced tech and all that kind of stuff, and aside from the idea that he's like in the movie, he's having memories from before he was cloned from his original body, and that kind of were brought through the cloning process, and he's kind of like in a sense of self-discovery of who he used to be and all this stuff, and how the woman that's assigned with him is not actually his wife, but she's just an AI clone who's his handler, who's there to monitor him and make sure he stays on course as a cloned robot to be a sentient guardian. And as he starts to rebel and break out of that, like that's the storyline they build for drama and emotion and tension. But the world that this is happening in is an alien invasion with orbiting AI data center in low Earth orbit that sends machines down to the Earth to steal the Earth's water. Excuse me, guys. Of course, it had Morgan Freeman in it. Every movie back then had Morgan Freeman in it. So yeah, rebels, remnant survivors of the Earth, that type of thing, and the destroyed Earth, doing the best they can to survive. But this was a fascinating movie. I don't know if it's going to show it in this trailer. I thought it did show it in this trailer. It's not going to show it in this trailer. Let me find another one for you real quick. Again, we're not going to listen to the audio because it'll get me shut down. So this movie, the whole concept was that the alien invasion was AI. I think we just missed it. So these machines right here that it shows you, these were these large machines sent down from the alien craft to literally steal the water for the AI from the oceans. And that's all they're doing. They're just hovering over the oceans with the tube, just sucking up water all day long. You guys, how many put in the one in chat? Let me know how many testimonies have you heard about people that had interactions with UFOs that stole their pool water from their backyard? I've heard a ton of them, by the way. So I just think it's fascinating. I'm not saying that that UFOs, aliens are AI data centers. I'm just saying that it's hilarious that the plot of this movie and the whole concept was the Earth lost the battle against the aliens. The aliens then have an AI data center to control Earth, and they need the water from the Earth, and they're consuming it to where now the Earth is not properly producing vegetation and recovering from the massive war that just happened. So it's just predictive programming that they want to achieve. Now, the reason I'm showing you this, guys, because these are their own words. These are the things they've talked about, what they want to achieve and do. But this doesn't mean that they're going to accomplish all this. The Father's in control. Now, according to people's sin, you receive the curse of the law, and you will be conquered by your enemies and all the machinations of deception and stratagems of warfare that your enemies will employ, which is what we see happen to Israel and other nations as they rebelled from Yahweh's law, and then systematically the curses of the law come in and happen like that. So this is why it's in their plan to get you to abandon being obedient to God and to His Son, walking in the love of the fullness of the law of God, because then it makes your people, your country, your citizenry, your community, it makes you vulnerable to the machinations of the enemy, which is constantly oppress, destroy, attack, and devour. They're just constantly trying to figure out another way to do it. Like they're the T-Rex from Jurassic Park testing, or no, the Velociraptors from Jurassic Park, the first one. They're constantly testing the electric fence to see where there's a weakness. You are the electric fence. Your obedience to God is the electric fence. This is why we must know God's word, be in it, practice it in our life. Not just on an individual basis with your families, but in your communities and with your nations, because the enemy is constantly testing the fence, looking for weaknesses. Where can we distract them? Where can we get their love to grow cold? Where can we get them to allow us in? Can we be allowed in? Will they let us steal their land, water, and resources and not do anything about it? Let me know what you guys think in the live chat. So in case you're not familiar in the past, here, let me do this real quick. This is just one of the AI companies that has some of the iconography, some of the naming, the branding of Hermes. Remember, ancient Greece, Hermes was the god of communication and commerce. What did we talk about previously with all the data center mergers, the AI company with X mergers, the concepts of Google looking to get its own rocketry program going so they can also put data centers up in space, or what they claim to be space, along with the Starlink, and Elon Musk is already there, trying to do it and achieve it. And he's building alliances, if you will, with agreements with these other companies to work together for this, which seems weird if you're in a competitive capitalist market. Why would you be, going into an agreement with OpenAI, with Sam Altman, and with the founder of Google, who should be your competitor? To both of you guys being able to, you would think Elon Musk would just want to have dominance. He would want to have dominance as his company to be the only one doing this, but no, they're working together because suddenly the idea of him actually having market share control and being a capitalist goes out the window. Suddenly it's just, we're going to help everybody achieve this totalitarian systematic control. Because the idea of ancient Hermes was that he was a messenger of the gods, and that doesn't quite describe it, right? The Romans called it Mercury. It doesn't. They're also considered the psychopomps. This is why he's considered Anubis or Thoth to the Egyptians. Okay, this is the idea that these were super smart intelligences that were considered the messenger of the gods to accurately and quickly communicate information from the heavens to the earth, which is why it's personified with wings. But it's also associated with commerce. The whole point of this was that they were the gods of trade, commerce, and communication between heaven and earth. And this is nothing's new under the sun. This is it. This is the modern realization of these ancient concepts. Still, with Satan still controls the nations of the earth. He's now in trying to install a system that will allow him, through the approval of mankind. So now it's like he's not forcing himself and expecting retribution from God and any problems. Now it's and by the way, he's done that in the past. He's forced himself and his will on certain areas and then was punished for it. You see this in Jubilees 47, where it talks about he was actually locked up for 4 days when the children of Israel were escaping Israel. And then he was let out to try to come attack them with Pharaoh's army. That's when he, urged Pharaoh to actually go chase him down and attack him, and cornered him at the Red Sea. So, but the previous days before that, Satan was locked away by the angels temporarily, and restrained from having influence over the king of Egypt, the Pharaoh of Egypt, and to allow the Hebrews to leave peacefully. So there is examples in Scripture of Satan overstepping his bounds and receiving a sense of temporary restraint and judgment, but not being fully locked away in Tartarus like some of these other rebellious angels. And I think he's, like I said, it's the Velociraptor, constantly testing the fence, constantly looking for the weak spot in the electric fence. And he's doing that with mankind if you can get mankind to consent, then he doesn't have to force his will on you. He's done exactly what he did with Eve. He got you to be convinced and eat it on your own volition. It's not like he grabbed Eve by the back of the head and shoved it in her mouth and said, eat this, right? He would have gotten in trouble for that. She would have been innocent. But if he can convince you that it's your idea and for you to do it, that it's going to benefit you, which is the lie, then that's where he has now access to come in and deceive further. And mankind is just voting for it, right? Because they're deceived. So this is where the ancient world personified and worshipped Hermes, Anubis, Mercury. They thought that he was an integral part of communication between heaven and earth, also pertaining to commerce and trade. So what did we talk about earlier? What did we look about? We heard some of those clips from the mergers of these companies. Stock prices and portfolios are going up as a result. People are thinking this is going to be the new AI revolution to bring jobs to these areas and to bring long-term sustainability. Like if you hear, I can't remember the video I was watching where there's a guy taking flack from someone that was saying, hey, like you're actually going to be removing a lot of middle income jobs with all this AI stuff because it's going to be taking over jobs that required human creativity. And the person's response was, well, I mean, you're not counting all the new jobs that would be created as a result of this. And he didn't have an answer for what those new jobs would actually be. He just was saying, oh, we don't even know. Oh, it was the Kevin O'Leary. Yeah, it was Tucker Carlson was talking with Kevin O'Leary. Maybe I can find that clip real quick. And Tucker was pressing him. So Kevin O'Leary is a billionaire. I think that's going to be way too long. Maybe this is it. Let's try this one real quick. 1 second. I know some people say, well, Tucker Carlson's CIA anyway, so what does it matter? But look, the point is the conversation that's being had, because it literally is the billionaire that's trying to fund the AI data center in Utah, who has no actual real answers and is just revealing that he has no real answers. Whether Tucker Carlson is a paid operative or not does not matter, because the common sense question is asked. The billionaire doesn't have an answer for the common sense question. He's just throwing out hopium of, well, something better is going to come along. Meanwhile, he's, in a position of generational wealth that the average person will never be at in their life. The average person he's in a position of not having to worry about rent and bills and utilities like the average person. And so he doesn't care how long it may take for a new type of job industry to come along once AI is established and a huge significant 30% of people have lost their job. He doesn't care about that. He's already insulated.
Let me ask, though, about why taxpayers...
1 second.
This, if it's a private business and your tenants are some of the richest companies in the world, why would taxpayers be required, as they now are, to subsidize this?
They don't necessarily have to do that. They just won't win any contracts. It's a competition.
But why are you getting tax breaks is my question.
Yeah, everybody, you go back and you say, what incentives can you give us to invest $15 billion in the first 1.5 gigs? That's what it takes. I have to go raise $15 billion.
Well,
that's just
okay, but anyone who starts a business, why should taxpayers have to pony up for that?
They don't. But
well, of course they do. If you're getting a tax break and they're not, they're making up the difference. There's a state budget.
Hey, that's no problem. That's no problem. I can build it in Texas. I can build it in Jacksonville, Mississippi.
But why, if it's such a good business, would you be asking taxpayers to help pay for it without giving them equity in the company? Are you giving taxpayers shares?
No, the investors get the shares, but here's why they would do it.
But why would the taxpayers have to? I mean, in other words, if you want to start a business, but why am I, as a taxpayer, forced to pay for your business? I don't get it.
Well, let's forget about data centers. Let's go any manufacturing. Let's say you're going to build.
AI will create millions of new jobs. You're
yes,
part of the basis of AI. You can't have AI without data centers, at least right now. What are those millions of jobs? Because we can go through the list that the creators, the people who actually are making AI right now, we can go through the list of jobs they say it's going to eliminate, which would be like lawyers and financial planners and like the basis of upper middle class America. That's going away. They've said this. What will it be replaced by?
It'll be replaced by new science opportunities, new exploration into space, new manufacturing for robotics. Wars in the future probably aren't going.
New manufacturing for robotics? You mean increased, like, millions of jobs to make robots that are going to replace jobs? Is that what you're saying? Like, is he just giving away the plan here, guys? Don't forget about Telos. Go watch our Investigating Babylon series. I put that together systematically for a reason. It touches on all these points of the plan. So the AI powers the automatons. What did he just say? Oh yeah, these new jobs that will be created will be for Oh yeah, new science, space opportunities, automated robotics. Really? So more $15 an hour jobs at a factory for people to make a robot that's going to replace their job later, or a robot that's going to drive them somewhere later and get rid of all the taxis and Ubers and Lyfts, which is a job market in itself. House-made robots, those are already being advertised. They can do the dishes for you. So then what, the idea, in case people are unaware, is they want to push people to something called universal basic income. It's called UBI. It's the idea that you don't have to work. The government just gives you a subsidy every month for your living expenses, and it's not going to be, you're not ever going to get wealthy, but it's enough for you to live on and you'll be good. I mean, there's nothing more satanic than that idea, in case you're not aware. Some of you may be thinking to yourself, well, that sounds like a good deal to me. I mean, I don't like working, so ha 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 ha. Yeah, we're commanded to work. If a man who does not work is no better than a heathen or reprobate. A man who does not work can provide for his family. This is a principle within Scripture, that we are to subdue and fill the earth, that there will be husbandry of the land, that we are to put forward 6 days a week, for a man shall work, but on the seventh day he shall rest. This is the divine decree from our Creator who made us and put us here, that we are to work with our hands. We are to stay busy and work to create the purpose. It's a blessing of God. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, I think it's verse 10, for a man to find enjoyment in his daily work. This is a gift from God. For a government to try to tell you, you don't have to work, just relax, we'll give you free food and water. No, you are being led to the slaughter. They're just going to give you poisoned food.
Going to be fought with people getting shot in the flesh. It'll be one set of robots against another. You debate the data center. I think it's fair to do that, what you're doing, but
okay, so say they spend trillions of dollars on an army of robots and say, oh, we're going to go fight Russia with an army of robots. And then what? Let's just say they actually do it. And then there's just a field somewhere where a bunch of army of robots go and fight each other. And then there's 10 American robots standing, and one, and all the Russian robots have been defeated. Will the Russian people then say, okay, we lost, come on in, take all of our resources and people, and distribute us, and to dismantle our government and take all of our, our nation's wealth? And no, they're not going to say that. Then the real people are going to fight. You just wasted trillions of dollars. They're not going to do that anyway. They're building the robots to turn them around on you. That's the point of Talos.
I would be very concerned if I were living in Taiwan that one day my electricity just goes out and I get invaded by basically robotics. That's what China wants. Now, if we don't get there first, I think we'll be in a bad place in 20 years.
I think it's very revealing that I asked you about jobs in the United States and you went immediately to defending Taiwan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the idea. It was an interesting interview if you guys want to watch the whole of it. I'm going to jump off the stream pretty soon. I'm going to, see any other questions in the live chat. Take your comments real quick. Here in about 45 minutes, we'll have an advanced class for our patrons that we're doing, finishing up in our Calvinism class for our patrons. Yeah, we talked about Skynet in our Investigating Babylon series. I think it's part 16. But that's where Telos comes from. It depends on AI. Yeah, Nimnob, this statement that comes from the 2030 agenda, you'll own nothing and be happy. It reminds me of the cadence of saying it, for whatever reason, immediately draws me to Genesis 3 and the serpent telling Eve, did God really say, surely you will not die? You will own nothing and be happy. Oh, did God really say, surely you'll not die? To me, it just comes across as the same type of statement. Yeah, Ernest, when people like this, like the head of Google, like Jeff Bezos, like, Kevin O'Leary, like Elon Musk, when they go out there and they talk, supposedly Elon Musk is the richest man in the world from net worth, but that's just a I feel like that's just what we're told. I feel like there's older legacies of monarchs and kings and queens, Saudi princes and kings that are probably wealthier than Elon, but just don't disclose their wealth. They're truly behind the scenes type of thing, the quote unquote shadow government that we were talking about earlier. But they put these spokespersons out here, these wealthy business magnates and owners out there to speak with the public as if, oh, well, the public has actual access to the movers and shakers in this world. But what people are learning right now with the data centers going up is they actually don't. That they're trying to rebel against these things, and they're just being like, oh, well, rubber stamp approval. We're going ahead and doing it anyway. What you going to do? What you going to do? They're just looking at people being like, oh, yeah, you don't want this poisoning your land and water. You don't want this taking up too much energy from your grid in this area. Okay, thanks for voicing your complaints. All right, we'll log that for you. Thank you. Bye-bye now. Okay, yeah, go ahead and tell them to start digging. Like they don't care about you. Like they're not, so many people are getting greased behind the scenes for these things to happen anyway. They're incentivizing. Like I saw this one guy from Texas, and the reporter was asking him, so it's already been documented these people are taking water from the aquifers for the natural groundwater that farmers need in the area. And this county commissioner that he's talking to in an interview, and he goes, well, if you reject these data centers, your town's going to miss out. They're just going to go down the street to the next town. And then you're going to be missing out on the opportunity. They're offering billions of dollars of revenue to come into your town. Meanwhile, the reporter just finished explaining to him the data that we already have from the last 15 years of data centers being put up in different towns around the country is there is no economic growth in that town. They are just taking the actual natural fresh water from the area. I don't know why they can't just recycle the water. It's amazing to me they can't just recycle the water to use for a coolant. And I don't know maybe I should need to do some more investigation of the actual coolant process, but like I thought we had Freon. I thought we had coolant stuff already that was like a more sustainable type of long-term thing. But I guess they just need fresh water to run through at all times. Like why not a recyclable source of water that the plant could put in operation? Like so there's a lot of things. The point is that the county commissioner in this interview just didn't get it. He's just been dangled a bunch of economic incentive to his region, his town, even though it's a lie. And he's like, but if we don't take advantage of it, the next town will. So you're like, bro, you're not going to get anything from this. You don't understand that, right? You've been lied to. That's really sad. So they put these people out there, Ernest, that are billionaires and magnates to the public, so the public thinks they have access to talk to these people. But as you just see with Tucker there, the billionaire just gives you the slogans. Just, I was asked a tough, pointed, specific correct question about this. That's going to reveal how disadvantageous this is to the average person and how this is not good for people. Let me just repackage the slogans and just say those again. And this is what comes off as very dishonest and corrupt. Yeah, just Peter, I've never heard that theory before. I wouldn't have much to comment on that. I don't think that's true, to be honest, though. Just from what quick scan of the scriptures I can go through in my head, I don't think that's true. So tell me, you're telling me that there's no way for them to filter the water? We can literally purify ocean water. In fact, there was I think it was called Quantum Solace, that James Bond movie from like 2008 or 2009. That I think the plot for that movie was some water, the bad guy, the villain, the James Bond villain was trying to like steal the water from an entire country in like Brazil or Uruguay or something like that. I think it was the plot of the movie, was a battle for water. And people at the time, I remember people were like saying, oh, this is a horrible plot for a Bond movie. Like, how boring. It's a battle over water. But like, bro, that's what's going on right now. It's a battle over water. Yeah, I'm not sure, military veteran. I don't know where they're dumping the waters in these regions or how it's being just, the water itself is being tainted with some sort of mineral buildup. I don't know what type of mineral buildup, but then it's being dumped into, I'm guessing the same region, which is affecting the land as well. But all right, guys, I'm going to jump off. I appreciate you joining for the stream. Hey, if you want to support us, if you like what we're doing and saying, you think that we're benefiting you, your family, increasing your walk with God, your discipleship, if you think that we're of value to you and you want to see us keep going, putting out more content on a regular basis, check us out on Patreon or any other ways in the video description that you feel led to support us. We're not Levites. We're not ministers. We're just simply obsessed with the Bible, obsessed with God's word, in love with Jesus Christ, and want you to walk with Christ closer in a better discipleship according to the Bible. And if you think we're helping you with that, consider becoming a partner with us. And there's ways to support us in the video description if God lays it on your heart. If not, if you just want to keep watching it for free, awesome. We love you. We thank you for being here. We'll see you soon.
Slow down and return to what truly restores. Our Sabbath Rest blend was created for all to enjoy. A comforting blend of organic herbs traditionally used to calm restlessness and invite deep, peaceful rest. Perfect before bed or while observing the day of rest with the Most High. The Tree of Life blend draws from organic natural herbs, thoughtfully crafted to support balance and renewal. Best enjoyed a few times each week with a touch of organic raw honey. 2 blends that are crafted with care for a moment of peace in every cup.